Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Latin 2.5. Let's check the homework. If you have not completed the homework, don't watch this video yet. I really mean that. I have ways of checking to see that that is what is happening. So do your homework first and then watch this video, which should only be 20 minutes or maybe a little less. So picture the rest of your class time being dedicated to you just doing your homework. We're going to do the same thing that we would have done today if we had been in class, and that is just to check the homework. I'll hold off on a 38 Latin stories, like one of the stories. I'll hold off on translating that until Monday. So we're kind of going to try to finish chapter 9 on a formal level tomorrow with the translation quiz, which I'll talk more about. But we'll do a little more practice with it because this week was so weird, obviously. Monday, we might get chapter 20 notes, but I also want to do more perfect passive, which is what the chapter is about. We're still kind of differentiating these present passives and future and imperfect passives from these new, weird, perfect passive ones that are always in these two chunks. One chunk being the fourth principal part of the verb, which is kind of the adjectived version of the verb, right? It's kind of like that. It's like you take the verb and you turn it into an adjective almost, and then it has different endings from the first and second declension. And then the second chunk is sum essa, of course. And so I think we're getting used to spotting them. Translating them can still be tricky, depending on if sum is like just present tense sum essa, that is perfect passive. If it is eram, eras, erat, imperfect of sum, then that is a pluperfect passive. And then if it's ero, eris, erit, it's future perfect passive. So we have, I was praised versus I had been praised versus I will have been praised, etc. Okay, let's get to what I believe to be number 3. Iudex a quo iudicium peratum est labora iam superator. This one's not too bad. It has perfect. Actually, okay, so they're shoving perfect passives and sometimes just like present passives into a lot of these, but also relative clauses. So at least for 3, maybe 4 of these, we have a lot going on. So actually, maybe this is that bad. And by that, I mean it's really good because the grammar is actually really interesting. The subject is very clear. That's just the judge, right? And then we see a quo, and hopefully, this is still pretty new, hopefully that sets off an alarm or perks your ears up to the fact that we might be entering a relative clause. Okay, it usually starts with qui, qui, quod, but in this case, it's starting with the a. Quo is going to be the object of a. So it's like the judge and then a or ob. If I'm kind of like looking ahead a little bit at what the verb in the relative clause is, it's paratum est. So that's me underlining what I assume to be the whole relative clause and is in fact the relative clause. So we can just kind of start off a quo with, by whom, and then paratum est. That might have thrown you for a second. There's something about that fourth principal part from pero parare, to prepare, that I almost think that's like a noun that I'm forgetting or something. And that's going to happen sometimes with these fourth principal parts. But that is from pero parare, to prepare. So it's going with S. It's a perfect passive. So it's by whom the eudicium has been or was prepared. So that's how we're going to take that. Was prepared is technically the same as peratur if it was, or a perabatur if it was imperfect passive. But it's fine to translate it that way. And then we can just continue on with the rest of the sentence. Labora iam superator. So let's see. So superator is present passive. Supero is to overcome. So he is overcome. So whereas the verb in the relative clause is perfect passive, the verb in the main clause is just present passive, that third person singular. He's overcome by labor. So real quick, let me make these green. So this labora is an ablative of anyone? Means? It's means, because labor is not a thing. Or I mean not a person, it's a thing. So it doesn't need a. So whereas, this is kind of interesting actually, whereas this is ablative of agent, because the quo, the whom, that is referring to the judge, or it's referring to, yeah, the judge. This labora is, it's just a thing. It's not a person. Okay, if I pick this one on the test for tomorrow, because I'm going to pick one of these, I would ask about the tense of paratum est and potentially the tense of superator also. They both have the passive voice, but paratum est should pretty clearly be perfect passive. We have like a normal perfect passive in almost all of these sentences, whereas superator is present passive. And what I mean by normal perfect, I mean not even pluperfect, not future perfect, just good old perfect. And you can tell because it has a present tense version of sum esse. It's just est. It's not erat or erit or anything. And then, okay, so y'all really need to take notes because there's a lot going on here. I would maybe ask about quo and labora being ablative. And I would want you, maybe I'll even make you kind of multiple choicey, because I know y'all still stumble with this or have trouble with these ablatives. But and like you would tell me which one is agent and which one is means. So all four of those things, we kind of have a pair of important things going on in the sentence. Quo is ablative. That is from our relative clauses. Let me grab that real quick. Because yeah, like I said, the relative clauses are showing up in a lot of these. So that's that guy right there, or this guy technically, probably because it's masculine. Yeah, and I mean, really, anytime you see quo showing up, it's probably going to have a preposition nearby, like ah, and that can throw you off as to the start of your relative clause. Okay, moving on. Aut sinem cuius familias servata erat numquam vidi. Okay, this is probably my least favorite. I don't like this one too much. This one's just like a little weird. It's kind of awkward. There's nothing really wrong with it, but it's a little weird. Okay, so sinem, that is from sinex sinus, which can be old as a third declension adjective, or it can be old man. And since I don't see another noun right next to it, I'm picturing or assuming that it is old man. Ox is just but. I don't know if we've talked about it. It's just a conjunction. So something about an old man, but hopefully it occurs to you that sinem he's like not nominative. He's third declension accusative, which is weird. And then when you see cuius, that's the beginning of a relative clause. Yeah. So okay, that's relative clause. So we have the same structure happening where it's like the middle is this relative clause. But the main clause is just going to be aut sinem. Then what is the rest of the main clause? It's actually those last two words at the end. The relative clause is like the middle there, and then vidi numquam. That's going to be the verb, the predicate part of our main clause. So vidi is from video, videre, vidi, wisum, to see. That is just first person singular. Do I have a chart for perfect? I'm still very sympathetic to the X 1.5 kids who had to gloss so quickly over the perfect tense. But yeah, that's just this guy, right? There's like a couple other instances where verbs could end with I. Perfect passes, right? Or passive infinitives is about it. But otherwise, if you see a verb and you're like, no, it's probably a verb, or like it's kind of recognizably a verb, and it's ending in I, it's a good chance it is just a first person singular perfect tense verb. So let me throw that in there. So it's just I have seen, or I saw the old man. That's the actual main clause. And I'm just going to get that going first because my relative clause is a little extra weird. And by extra weird, I basically mean cuius is kind of a weirder relative pronoun to start a clause with. It is genitive, and it's usually translated, as long as it's referring to a person, as whose. Okay, so whose, or like maybe of which, if it wasn't referring to a person. But it is the genitive singular of all genders from the relative clause there. So it's like, I've never seen the old man whose, because it is right after sinem, once we like, turn this into an Englishy word order, I kind of shifted over syntax wise. Old man whose family servata erat. It's so easy to think servo, servare is to serve. It's actually not. It's more like save, keep, protect, almost like guard. but it's servata erat. So the erat there, it's not the est that we saw in the last sentence that was just perfect passive. So this one is pluperfect passive. This is not a relevant chart, but I mean you can see there actually is a through line there. Pluperfect active verbs have the ERA, and so do pluperfect passives, but it's like separated out from the fourth principal part of the verb. So anyway, this is all to say it's not that he like the family that was kept or saved, but it's had been, okay, because it's pluperfect. So whose family had been protected? Weird sentence. I'm not really saying I wouldn't pick this one because, like, again, there's nothing wrong with it. I just like don't get the story here. I've taught this before, maybe even to you guys, and I think even at that point I commented that like I didn't understand what the context was. And so far as these sentences kind of like allude to some story or narrative, who knows what that's about? But if I picked this one on the quiz, I would ask about Curious, because I do want y'all to know that's genitive. And I'd ask about the tense of servata erat, pluperfect passive. I don't think I would ask about the tense of weedy, which is perfect active. More interested in the pluperfect tense servata erat that has a passive voice. Remember, active and passive are voices, where the 6 tenses are tenses: present, future, imperfect, perfect, pluperfect, future perfect. Acive qui ad gracium missus erat pax et libertas laudatae sunt. Okay, so let's see. Acive. Again, the structure is weird here. The editors aren't giving us commas. These are unusually hard lectiones, guys. I just want to put that out there. If you're starting to like feel like you're all of a sudden losing your foothold with the textbook where we have been in terms of the content, don't worry, it's just a weird set of sentences. So acive qui, all I can really tell you here is like once you see qui, you should maybe think, okay, that's the beginning of a relative clause, which is weird because like acive is just this like part of a main clause that's floating off on its own. But qui all the way to would be the end of a verb. That's where relative clauses tend to end. So all the way to erat, right? So something about like who missus erat. Missus is from mito mitra, to send. Erat is telling us that this is the same tense as the last verb, servata erat. So who had been sent to Greece. Okay, so that's just me acting like I'm translating the relative clause for the first time. Hopefully that's something you could maybe glimpse doing on your own. But then what is the main clause? Pax et libertas looks to be our actual subject. It's buried in the middle of the sentence. So peace and liberty, laudatae sunt. Laudatae sunt is just good old perfect passive, whereas missus erat was pluperfect. So it's like peace and liberty were praised or has been praised. Either way, right? And then now I know what to do with acive. It's like by the citizen who had been sent to Greece. And this doesn't need to be capitalized. So if I picked this one, which maybe I could, I would ask the tense of laudatae sunt, which is perfect. Its voice is passive. Maybe the case of graeciam, just to refresh or review that, ad takes an accusative. But then I would definitely ask the tense of missus erat, which is pluperfect passive. So we have a pluperfect passive and a perfect passive. And I would want you to be able to differentiate those. Sorry, ignore graeciam, guys. Ignore graeciam. Obviously, the thing I should ask about would be cive, because it is an ablative of anyone? Agent. So we're seeing a lot of these ablatives of agents and means because those are so common with passive verbs. Since the verb is happening to the subject, ablatives are the things telling us what is actually doing the verb. Don't worry, guys. The textbook isn't just going to be ablatives and passive verbs for the rest of the textbook. Things get totally shaken up and weird after like chapter 23 when you get participles and passive periphrastics and ablative absolutes. Quid auctori dictum est cui a beneficia data sunt. This is a little, yeah, this one's actually really hard. This one's, it's hard. So auctor, auctorus is author. So with that long I there, that is actually dative, and that's important to know. Yeah. So, okay, dictum est is our first verb. Let's take care of that. The structure of this one's weird too, and we have yet another relative clause. These are really tough. I'm almost certain that textbook mellows out after this chapter. So these first four words, I'm not sure if you were able to arrive at anything close to this, but something like been said to the author. And that's pretty difficult, right? Because you have to like A, figure out auctorius dative, B, figure out dictum est is perfect passive from dico dicro to speak, which is already, you know, kind of new for us. And then that quid is this questioning, this interrogative pronoun. What has been said to the author, and then in, like a relative clause starts with cui and goes all the way to the end. So when you see cui, so I use purple just to highlight anything that's new. Basically, it doesn't really mean anything specific. It's kind of like whatever's new to that chapter. Cui is usually going to be to whom. And data sunt, maybe you wouldn't recognize data, but that's from dodare, dedi datum. So I need to like show you that with this full dictionary entry, not just part of it. Datum. So either data from that fourth principal part. That kind of looks like dodare, but I wouldn't blame you for being thrown off by that. Ea beneficia, that ea is just doing the job of a demonstrative, a hic, or illa. So it's just like this or that kindness. And yeah, usually cui is going to be to whom. You can almost count on that with cui, as long as it's actually talking about a person, because that is the dative right there. So if it's talking about a person, it will be to whom, and it would be like to which if it wasn't. But if I pick this one, I would ask the tense and voice of both of the verbs, dictum est and data sunt. They're both perfect tense, passive voice. I'd ask the case of cui, which I made dark blue just to differentiate from auctori. Maybe I'd ask the case of auctori and cui at the same time. And you would tell me they're both dative. That's why they're both blue. All right. If y'all have any questions, please hit me up on Teams. Is this like the last one? I think aquae caleres ex fluminibus flux erant et cum mari inginti mixtae erant. Okay, so this might just be a vocab thing, but grammatically, this is actually the first kind of straightforward one because there is no relative clause. Like that's the big difference. I don't think the perfect passives are that bad. It's just that in those first four, they're giving us perfect passives and relative clauses at the same time. So this is like the swift waters or like the fast waters from the rivers had flowed. Yeah, had flowed sounds a little weird to me, but that is flux erant is pluperfect from fluophora fluxi. So the ERA makes us think pluperfect, so we use had for 1.5 converts. Don't remember that the perfect tense is not actually that bad, right? Weird perfect tense endings, all of which are distinct except these two. But pluperfect, they all have ERA, and you gotta whip out that had to translate them. All right, so swift waters had flowed. Had flowed. Why does that sound? I want to say like had flown. Okay, flowed from the rivers and had been mixed with the huge ocean. That's not too weird, though. I will mention, like Mari is ablative, and that's a bit weird, because it's one of our I stem third declensions. I mean, just look at Mari there to the right. It's kind of weird. It gets the long I for ablative or dative. Something that happens with all of our third declension adjectives, actually. If I pick this one, I would just ask about the tense and voice of mixtae erant. That's yet another pluperfect passive. Okay, so I kind of misspoke earlier. They're giving us a lot of pluperfect passive. Some perfect passive, but a lot of pluperfect passive. And then fluminibus is ablative, Mari is ablative. Maybe I'd ask about both of them at the same time. All right. Were these just extra? Let's see. I'll do this one and then I'll gloss through the rest. Quae argumenta. It's a little tricky, but argumenta looks to be feminine. So it would get the feminine quae from qui quae quad. So it's which argument and which certain argument, which sounds a little weird. And I'd like move ahead in the sentence and see parata erunt. from pero parare. We've already seen that today. So which certain argument has been prepared by the judges against those evil deeds, those like serious or weighty evil deeds tomorrow? This one's not bad. If I picked it, parata erunt is perfect passive. Eudicibus is ablative of agent by the judges, right? Okay, unless our family has been freed, nothing will delight us. I won't pick that one because it wasn't assigned. There's no, there is a perfect passive. It's pretty boring. The last one, I promise. So, okay, quis is usually going to be who. You can usually assume that. So who, I'm moving ahead, finding a verb. Koiperat is from koipi. Koipis had began, but it's pluperfect, so had begun. Who had begun to prepare, parare is the infinitive, these judgments. Oh yeah, wait, I don't know what this out is weird. Or qui eudex, or not who anymore, but which judge. And then patu erat is the pluperfect of possum, had been able, or had even been able to prepare like this or them. We're talking about the judgment still, which I should technically make red. This, I just want to like go over this before we're done and I talk about what's on the quiz tomorrow, because it does demonstrate or illustrate an interrogative pronoun where we're asking a more open-ended question like who verbed blah blah blah, and then an interrogative adjective where we're asking about something like quis buddy here is eudex, like which judge. So who, interrogative pronoun, versus an interrogative adjective, which judge, where we're asking about a noun that's right next to the interrogative pronoun. Well, in this case, adjective. I don't need you to know those terms, but you should probably know that there's kind of like two different flavors of when qui, qui, quod, or in this case, quis, qui, quod, are used to ask questions rather than to form relative clauses. The translation quiz tomorrow, one of the sentences from 3 through 7, really all of them are fair game. So make sure you were writing down what I was saying about like the things I'll ask. And then I'll write one sentence that you have not seen before with all words in it glossed. And depending on how I'm feeling, I might give you 2 from 3 through 7, and then like an option of a third one that you can do. Okay. Either way, it's going to be 2 sentences, so you might as well study these really well, because you can't really study for the second part too much other than just knowing that you know how to actually handle the perfect passive in general, which, I mean, you can just kind of stare at these until you feel comfortable with it. All right, guys, please ask me questions on Teams if you have any, and your homework needs to have already been turned in by the time you're hearing this. But otherwise, I will see you all tomorrow.